Hello, my name is Dr. Kay, and in this presentation, we are going to focus on writing qualitative results in Chapter 4. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to do all these things. First, you will learn the major components of a strong Chapter 4 and how they fit together. Next, you will understand how to describe your participants and effectively present results. Finally, we will review APA guidelines for this chapter, alignment with your research questions, and common mistakes students make when writing qualitative results. Let's start with the big picture. Chapter 4 typically includes 4 major elements. You will begin with a brief introduction to the chapter. Next, you will provide an overview of participants. Then you will present your findings, organized either by themes or by research questions. Finally, you will show alignment with your research questions so the reader can clearly see how your results answer what you set out to investigate. The purpose of Chapter 4 is to present the findings of your qualitative study clearly and systematically. This is where you tell the story of your data in direct connection to your research questions. You highlight the themes that emerge from the data and center participant voices through quotes and descriptions. At the same time, you provide enough evidence to show that your themes are grounded in the data. Importantly, Chapter 4 sets the stage for interpretation later. You are presenting what participants said, but not yet explaining what it means. Now let's talk about best practices for opening Chapter 4. Chapter 4 should begin with a short introductory paragraph. This paragraph opens the chapter and gives the reader a sense of what information will be presented and how the chapter is organized. It also helps avoid stacked headings by easing the reader into the results rather than starting abruptly with participants or themes. In the next few slides, we will learn how to present participant profiles. Before presenting your findings, you need to introduce your participants. Take some time to think about what picture you want to paint of them before the reader starts hearing their voices. In this section, you provide relevant demographic and contextual information and introduce your demographic table. You should explain the table before presenting it and use pseudonyms or participant codes. This section should not include discussion of themes or responses to research questions. On this slide, you can see 2 tables that summarize key participant information. These tables are included to help orient the reader before moving into the qualitative findings. The first table presents participant profiles using pseudonyms, while the second table uses codes. For your research project, you can choose either of the 2. You can observe how both tables allow the reader to quickly see who participated in the study and understand the overall composition of the sample. Demographic tables are used to provide additional contextual information that is relevant to the study, such as participant roles, settings, or other characteristics that help frame their experiences. This information becomes especially important once you begin presenting themes because it helps the reader understand the context of participants' perspectives. When writing the narrative that accompanies your demographic table, avoid repeating the same information from the table. Instead, use the narrative to highlight meaningful patterns or differences that help contextualize the findings. As you do that, keep the qualitative focus and avoid numerical summaries or quantification such as counts or percentages. Once participants are introduced, you can move into presenting the findings. This is the main section of Chapter 4, and how you organize this section plays a major role in how clearly the reader understands your results. This slide highlights an important decision you need to make when writing Chapter 4, how to organize your findings. In qualitative studies, findings are most often organized either by themes or by research questions. The choice depends on whether your questions overlap and whether the same ideas or patterns appear across multiple questions. If your research questions are broad or exploratory and the same themes cut across sections, a theme-based structure is usually the best fit. This allows you to present each theme in depth without separating participant experiences. On the other hand, if each research question addresses a unique aspect of the phenomenon and your themes do not overlap, organizing findings by research question may be more appropriate. In that case, each section clearly answers one question before moving on to the next. Either way, your organization should be intentional. Your structure should help the reader follow the story of your data and clearly see how your findings respond to the purpose of the study. A theme-based structure works best when your research questions are broad, exploratory, or overlapping, and when the same themes emerge across questions. In such cases, themes cannot be cleanly separated by individual research questions, so organizing results by themes would be more appropriate. Please pause the video to read the example on this slide and see how these three research questions are answered using thematic approach. Presenting results by research questions is appropriate when each research question examines a unique aspect of the topic and when themes do not overlap across questions. In this approach, findings are presented by research question and main themes are presented within each section. Please pause the video to read the presented example and see how the two research questions are answered by presenting themes that emerged from each. Themes should be presented using clear, descriptive headings. These headings should help the reader quickly understand what the theme addresses. Avoid headings that are too vague or too detailed. On this slide, you can see a few of such examples. The discussion of each theme should begin with a short introductory paragraph. This introduction names the theme, explains what it captures, and describes how it appears in participants' experiences. This short introduction should also prepare the reader for the type of evidence that will follow, rather than moving directly into quotes. Please pause the video to read this example, which illustrates how to introduce a theme by explaining its focus and grounding it in participant narratives before presenting specific evidence. In qualitative research, evidence primarily consists of participant quotes. Chapter 4 should balance three forms of reporting: short verbatim quotes, longer verbatim quotes, and descriptive reporting written in your own voice. This balance helps the chapter keep storytelling focus rather than sounding like a transcript. Let's take a look into each type. Short quotes are fewer than 40 words. They are placed within quotation marks and integrated into the paragraph narrative. These quotes should always be introduced so the reader understands their relevance to the theme being discussed. Please pause the video to read the example and observe the APA formatting for the quote. Long quotes are 40 words or more. They are formatted as indented block quotes without quotation marks. Long quotes must also be introduced beforehand to guide the reader. Please pause the video to read the example and observe the APA formatting. Descriptive reporting is used to avoid back-to-back quotes and helps keep Chapter 4 from reading like a transcript. It refers to summarizing what participants said using neutral, objective language. Between quotes, you use your own voice to describe what participants shared and to highlight patterns across their experiences. This is still reporting, not interpretation, so the focus remains on what was said rather than what it means. Please pause the video to read this example of descriptive reporting. This example illustrates how a theme can be presented by storytelling and grounding it in participant narratives before presenting specific evidence. This image illustrates how themes should be presented in Chapter 4. Just like a burger or a sandwich, a strong theme has layers that build together. The top layer is the theme heading and introduction. This needs to be clear and descriptive so the reader immediately understands what the theme is about. The middle layers are your evidence, including participant quotes and descriptive reporting that show how the theme appears in the data. The bottom layer is your narrative voice, which summarizes the theme, holds everything together, and helps the reader follow the story. If any of these layers is missing, the theme feels incomplete. A heading without evidence is too vague. Quotes without narrative feel disconnected, and narrative without quotes lacks support. As we learned in the opening of this presentation, all findings must connect back to your research questions. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Remember that themes are not the ultimate goal of Chapter 4. The goal is answering your research question. Chapter 4 should conclude by clearly showing how the findings respond to each research question. This is especially important when using a theme-based structure, as it helps prepare the reader for interpretation that will come in the following sections. To conclude, let's go over some common mistakes to avoid. Common mistakes include presenting quotes without context, overusing long quotes and having the chapter read like a transcript, and failing to clearly connect findings back to the research question. Students also sometimes minimize their own narrative voice or slip into quantitative language by trying to quantify participants' experiences. Chapter 4 should always remain descriptive, qualitative, and clearly tied to the study's purpose. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. I hope it was useful as you work on your Chapter 4 and presenting your findings.